What's up, y'all? Today we talking about 5 signs your relationship with God is growing. I know it's a lot of ways that we could figure out if our relationship with God is growing, but today I'm gonna give y'all 5 good signs that you definitely know that your relationship with God is growing. So the first sign to show that your relationship with God is growing is going to be you are praying more. That's right, you're praying more. Basically, you're talking more to God. We know that we're struggling with a relationship with God or with just knowing who God is before we actively pursue being in a relationship or before we actively start moving into a relationship with God. So when we're consciously and intentionally trying to work on a relationship with God, when we start to talk to God more, and we could look back and we could see when we ain't even talked to God, when we had a hard time praying, even thinking about God, that clearly shows that we are growing in our relationship, right? I'm gonna go a step further. When you start waking up in the morning and you know you gotta talk to God, when things are going on in your life, like hard situations, even good things, and automatically you start thinking about God and you over here thanking God and you over here talking to God like he's your best friend, that's how you know you're growing in a relationship with God, because God is on your mind consistently and you feel like you always got to talk to him. It's like he's your best friend now, right? That's a clear sign that your relationship with God is growing, because you remember when you ain't even think about God hardly, right? And you remember when you wouldn't even pray in the morning or at night or through the day, or when something happened to you, or when somebody treated you away, or when you was looking for a job, or when you had a hard time, or when you felt stressed. You wasn't even thinking about God. You wasn't even thinking about talking to God. You was probably calling your family, calling your friends, trying to get advice from them, trying to see what they thought about it. But now, automatically, for some reason, God just comes up in your mind and you start talking to God like, God, thank you for this. Or God, can you help me with this? God, I need you, right? That's definitely one of the best signs and a clear sign that you are now growing in your relationship with God, because you have constant communication with him. You are constantly and actively thinking and speaking to him on a daily basis. All right. The second sign is going to be you want to love your enemies. And I know y'all looking at me like, I know half of y'all probably don't even do that right now, right? Or half of y'all, or most of y'all have an issue with loving your enemies, right? I know that might be probably one of the hardest things that God wants us to do, right? But when we look through the scriptures, we know the scripture says to love your enemies, to pray for your enemies, to give to them, to do for them, to do for people who treat you wrong, right? Do for people who humiliate you, who persecute you, right? And we also see that Jesus basically demonstrated that, right? All through the Gospels, which is Mark, Luke, John, and Matthew, right? We see where he died for sinners who was basically treating him wrong, right? And we ourselves, we treat him wrong. When we go against him, we treat him wrong. When we deny him, when we sin, we basically pinning Jesus back to the cross. We're treating him wrong. But guess what he's doing? He's consistently still loving us, right? Even when he was being crucified, if you look at the last miracle, when Peter cut the soldier's ear off, Jesus picked the soldier's ear back up and healed it. And the soldier came for Jesus so that they could persecute him. Jesus clearly says in so many scriptures, right? Even Paul and other people who wrote in the Bible clearly tell us to love those who don't love us back, to love those who is hard for us to love. So now that's a very clear sign. That's an extremely clear sign, because Jesus says that they will know that we are his by how we love one another, right? And even us as Christians, right? Even us as Christians are going to be hard to love at times, and it's going to be hard for us to love others at times. So if we're choosing to love people who treat us wrong, we're choosing to love people who may seem unlovable, right? Who we don't even think deserves love. That is a clear sign. And those who go against God, those who fight God, those who don't like God and don't want to be near God, that's a clear sign of we're consciously thinking, how can I love them? How can I love them? That shows that our mind and our hearts has now been transformed, because in the world says no, don't do nothing for that person. The world says no, go get them back, get revenge. And God says he will avenge those, right? God says to love them and he'll take care of it. So when we start to think like Jesus, when we start to move like Jesus, and instead of trying to harm our enemies, instead of trying to get our enemies back, now we're thinking of ways, how can I love them? How can I forgive them? How can I give to this person, right? Because we could clearly see their heart. We can clearly see that they're going through things. So now we're choosing to do what Jesus told us to do. That's a clear sign that we are definitely growing in our relationship with God, and God will be proud of us, man. Sign number 3 is gonna be you are more at peace. Now, what do I mean by you are more at peace? See, before we got into this relationship with God, before we was going to God, before we was talking to God, right, we were less at peace. So when things would happen to us, we would be stressed, we would be depressed, right? We don't know what to do. We don't know where to go. We don't know who to call. We don't know, but now we're more at peace. Now when somebody treats us wrong, just like I was just saying, now when somebody treats us wrong, we're now thinking, okay, well, maybe they're going through something. Instead of being extremely upset and stressed or depressed or annoyed or irritated with this person and wishing that they would treat us right, now we're looking at them a little bit different, right? We're like, well, maybe they're going through something, or maybe I could do this for them. We're more at peace. When people start coming to us, treating us wrong, when we put in an application for a job, or when we put in an application for a school, we're more at peace. We're more patient, right? Because we understand and we trust God with the situation rather than wanting it to be our way. We're more at peace. And what happens when we're more at peace? We actually create an environment of peace. Jesus says that we are supposed to be the peacemakers, right? He came to teach us how to have peace in the situation, right? So when we're going through hard times and waiting, right? Like when Jesus got crucified on Friday and they had to wait for the Spirit to come back. You know how hard that was, right? When we're over here doing what Jesus told us to do, and we have to suffer during this time and we have to wait, right? When we're over here trying to change our lives, but we got to go through the hard thing, now we got to wait during that time, right? But instead of us getting caught up in the storm, drowning in the storm like Peter, right? Now we have more peace because Jesus is with us. He already told us that he got us. He already told us that he gonna handle the situation. He already told us that it's gonna come. He already told us if we prayed and believed it, then it will be, right? He already said if we ask, it will be given. So we got peace through the situation when the world feels like they're in chaos. You get what I'm saying? So we're more at peace in situations, even breakups, and with family. When we're going through all these situations with family, we're more at peace because God has now gave us peace in our minds. He has cleared our minds. He has reminded us of everything that he did in the past. He's going to do it again for us. That we ain't got to worry because he's going to always handle it for us. We don't got to worry because the Spirit is here to help us get through this thing. We understand now. So we are more at peace. That's a clear sign to tell that you are growing, that we are growing in our relationship with God, because the thing that we thought would kill us, now we understand that it ain't killing us, man. We just waiting a little bit and God gonna handle it. All right. Sign number 4 is when your environment changes. Now, what do I mean by your environment changes? So before you got in this relationship with God, before when you was really outside of your relationship with God, when you probably didn't even know God like that, you was doing all types of things, right? You was in the clubs, you was in the strip clubs, you was having sex crazy, you was dressing away, you was acting away, you was going to all these different places. You had all these friends that was acting crazy, even family members, right? Your environment changes now. Now, you don't want to do the things that you did before. Now, you don't want to have the same type of friends that you had before, right? Because bad company corrupts good character, right? And God fills us with good character, with integrity. He changes us. He transforms us from the world into his kingdom ways, right? We start to follow him. Now we don't want to do what we used to do. Now we don't want to go where we used to go. Now those things look unattractive to us. So our environment is changing now. The people that we're going around, the things that we're going to do. Now we probably going to Bible studies. Now we at church, right? Now we want to talk about God. Now we want to go read books. You know what I'm saying? Now we want to go to church events. Now we want to go have fun, right? But in a different way. Now we want to go around people that we know will keep us in a relationship with God, that we know will protect us. We don't want to do the stuff that we used to do anymore. We ain't over here drunk, acting crazy no more. We ain't over here having sex wild crazy with all these other people and going places that pull us back to where we used to be, right? We're trying to stay away. We're trying to stay strong while helping others that's struggling as well. Our environment has now changed. We ain't who we used to be, so we ain't doing what we used to do, and we ain't going where we used to go. The environment has now changed, and now we're trying to create a better environment for ourselves and for those around us so that they can see God through us. So when our environment changes, it's a clear sign that our spirit has changed and that we are growing in our relationship with God. Number 5 is my favorite sign that shows that we are now growing closer in our relationship with God. And that is, you are convicted more. Now you are convicted, right? Because before, and this kind of goes back to what we was just talking about, because now you don't want to do the things that you used to. Why? Because you're sensitive to it. You're sensitive. You're convicted. You know God isn't going to be pleased with that. You know that that thing can lead you to do something that you didn't want to do. You know that these places or culture, right? Culture tells you to be away, to do this and do that, right? Now you're convicted. The spirit is convicted over here saying, you know God don't like that. You know God don't like ugly. You know God don't want you to do that no more. Because you remember when you did it and you remember where it led you, right? So culture starts to look way more unattractive. You're more sensitive to things because the spirit is now convicting you. And when you treat others a way. So instead of just speaking how you want to speak to somebody, now you're more conscious of how that person may receive it. Right? Now you're more conscious of if this person sees God in you or not. You're convicted on how you treat others. Now you care about how others would feel. Now you care about if this is good or bad because we walk in righteousness. So now you want to give love to people when before you ain't even care if they felt love from you or not. Now you want to be forgiving to others. You're convicted to forgive because you remember when Jesus said, Father, forgive them for they know not what they do, right? So now you're convicted on how you treat somebody else, right? In your life, because the Bible tells you to die to yourself. So how can I give to them now? You're convicted to love others. You're convicted to think of others. You're convicted to not be selfish. You're convicted to not go to this place. You're convicted to not be around these type of people who led you astray before. You're convicted to not lie to someone. You're convicted to be honest. You're convicted to be faithful. You are convicted in your spirit. Now you walk with good character. Now you walk with integrity. Now you have love on the inside of you. Instead of selfishness, you have selflessness. Because Jesus is now moving inside of you and you have conviction in your heart. And when you have conviction in your heart, true conviction, and you're convicted a lot now, that means the spirit is moving in you. The spirit is trying to lead you. Jesus has now transformed you. And this is a clear sign that your relationship with God is growing. All right, y'all. I hope y'all wrote these notes down, man. I just wanted to let y'all know a few signs that shows that you're growing in your relationship, man. And don't give up, okay? But anyway, I'm going to get at you when I get at you.